Hi, folks. This is Lee W. Mowen, the host of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast. I've been hosting my podcast on Anchor for some time now, and let me tell you why it's the easiest way to make a podcast. When you host with Anchor, you have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your computer or phone. Anchor then distributes your podcast for you so others can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. You can even make some money with your podcast with no minimum listenership required. And best of all, it's 100% free. It truly is the one-stop shop for those looking to start a podcast. To start, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor. On episode 145 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, it's time for Love and Honor with the voice of the RedHawks. Our special guest is Steve Baker, the broadcasting voice of Miami University Athletics. Welcome to the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. This is a weekly podcast covering all sports in Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. From Lima to the Ohio River and northern Kentucky, from eastern Indiana to Madison County and all points in between, this is your source of local Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio sports. Visit the leewmowen.com/podcasts to find your favorite podcasting platform. Music created with the Splash app. Time for another episode with your host, Lee W. Mowen. Here on episode 145 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, we have the voice of Miami RedHawks football and men's basketball in Steve Baker. Steve, thanks for joining the podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Lee. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. I'm living the best life I can with this coronavirus.
Yeah, I think we all are right now. Just working from home, have been for more than a month, and trying to get some things done. And luckily, the way things change with social media and computers and that sort of stuff, we're able to do some things.
I saw on Miami RedHawks Facebook page, you all do a wonderful job on keeping the RedHawks fans informed and entertained as well. It's looked very nice.
Well, thank you very much. We've spent a lot of time and between athletic communications, our broadcasting staff and social media staff, we kind of all three work together, and they come up with the ideas, and then we turn around and execute them. And the coaches and players have all been very cooperative and able to get some things out there to our Miami fans.
Excellent. So let's begin, Steve. Where are you originally from?
Actually was born here in Oxford a long time ago. Grew up just across the state line in Indiana and went to school in Brookville. And so I'm a Southeast Indiana, Southwest Ohio kind of guy.
Excellent. How did you wind up at Miami University?
It's interesting and it's not. I started in radio actually at what was WOXY back in 78. Quite by accident, and got into radio, was a DJ for a couple of years, and moved to Bedford, Indiana for a while. That's where I started doing high school play-by-play. From there to Virginia, back to Ohio, then to Florida, and then came back to Oxford and started in 1984 back at WOXY under a new owner. And it was an alternative rock station. And, quite honestly, I had been working in top 40, beautiful music, country. The 2 years before I came back up here, I was working at a country station. And, really the last place I wanted to work was a punk rock station. But, they gave me the job, and I was there for 20 years. About a year after I got there in 83. So about a year after that, I started producing the games with Omar Williams and John Pont, filled in for Omar on play-by-play. So actually my first broadcast in play-by-play was a basketball game in 1984, and eventually took over as the voice of the Miami football and men's basketball teams, first men's basketball and then football. And have been doing it almost ever since. There was a 4-year period there where the university started the network, and WOXY wasn't a part of that, so I didn't do the games, but came back and actually was hired by the university as the director of broadcasting in 2001, and have been there ever since. So beginning my 32nd year of broadcasting, hopefully come this fall.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned Omar Williams. Is that the same gentleman that was at WDTN all those years ago?
Absolutely, the dean of Miami Valley Sportscasters, and I learned an awful lot from Omar Williams. He was, just always right on top of things as far as his notes and his the way he prepped. I still use a scorebook much like he used, because we were talking about it one night, and basically if you looked at my scorebook, you probably wouldn't know what is what and that sort of thing, but I do, and it's been something that I've been using for decades now, and actually got that from Omar, and and he and John Pont were just great professionals and funny guys and so much fun to work with.
See, I learned something new every day. I mean, earlier when I interviewed Larry Hanskin, he told me that Marty Brannaman was almost hired to do Dayton Flyers basketball, and now I learned that Omar Williams was the voice of Miami RedHawks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, Marty Brannaman was a much better basketball announcer than he ever was baseball, in my opinion. I used to catch him every now and then on the network doing an ACC game of the week, and he's one of my favorite basketball guys.
So, your first year at Miami University, what was that like, becoming the then voice of the Redskins?
Well, actually, it was kind of fun, because actually among the first games that I did, actually before I became the voice, when I first started, Ron Harper was there. And it was so much fun to go to the games and the crowds and that sort of thing. But because of spring training and when it started, Omar was unable to ever do an NCAA game because he would be in Florida with the Reds in spring training for WDTN. So I got to do both of Ron's last two NCAA games. One there in Dayton against Maryland. It was Ron Harper against Len Bias. And then the next year up in Minneapolis, Ron Harper's team against Jeff Hornacek's team. And those were some of my favorite things when I first started. When I became the voice of Miami basketball, it was a lot of fun. Even after Ron left, there were some great teams, and it's changed a lot. Obviously, the style of play. There was no 3-point line then. And there was no fly zone under the basket. But it's changed a lot, but it's still, you got to put the ball in the hoop and play defense, and those basics still the same. But it was a lot of fun to really go to the ball games then and be a part of those when Ron played.
And he's part of that special that ESPN has going on, talking about the Chicago Bulls. It's funny how that small world happens.
Yeah, indeed. And, Ron's a great guy. See him about once a year when it comes down to a ball game here. But you talk about a guy that had so much success, and you can attribute that to Michael Jordan, who taught him. He said, look, I'm going to score the points. You play the defense here in Chicago, and you'll get your points. But 5 championship rings, and, there's not too many guys that can say that. And he just had a marvelous career.
From year one to the end of this season, what's really changed between broadcasting, Miami University itself, the Redskins, RedHawks? What's all changed in your tenure as the voice?
Oh, technology. And it's moving so fast now that, when I first started, we were broadcasting on a phone line with one box that was a mixer and a phone all kind of into one thing. And, basically setup was 5 minutes and you go in and you're gone. Then you went through the ISDN phase, which took another box and another person to operate. And now with broadcasting over the internet, as far as radio is concerned, with voice over broadcast or voice over IP, it's almost back to that small box again. With you plug into one ISDN line or one Cat 5 line, internet line, and you're good to go. But the technology has changed so much, and obviously video. When I came back working for Miami as the director of broadcaster in 2001, we didn't do video. There was no video on the internet. And I remember when Ben, his last year in 2003, I told our budgeting director, look, I've got to go buy a video camera and, put some of this stuff up on the website. And he's like, we don't have the money for that. And finally we convinced him. And so from there, you have one small video camera, and now we're doing broadcasts for ESPN Plus, ESPN3. We're doing all the video board stuff for Goggin, Millette, and Yeager. And so the technology and just the pure fact that video is taking over on everything almost has been the biggest changes, I think, in the broadcast industry, especially for sports in general.
And for fans as well, because with ESPN Plus and ESPN3, I mean, you just need a cable subscription or just a $5 a month subscription, and you can watch it wherever you are. You don't have to be near Oxford. You can be everywhere and watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. That's how much it has changed, because when we were first starting, we were WOXY was the official station, and we had station here and there that would be part of a quote unquote network, but we were always getting letters, hey, you guys got to get a station in Columbus so we can go to the Ohio State games and listen to the game. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But these days you can go to one game and watch any other of 30 games on your phone and keep track of it and that sort of thing. And it's just amazing. I know that, when I'm sitting there, I do play-by-play for our ESPN3 and Plus broadcast. I also have my phone set up watching the women's game on the road, so I have an update on their score that's in real time or fairly close to real time. So, there's about 3 different screens. Most of them are related to the game I'm calling, but I also, if they're playing, I'll have another game up, whether it's hockey or women's basketball, just to kind of keep an update on things.
Would you ever picture when you first started Miami that you have so many screens and so many ways to be able to follow all types of Miami athletics like that?
When we first started doing ESPN3 and Plus, I remember I told some of my colleagues, I said, because, basically now for men's basketball, if the women are playing at home, I don't go do the men's basketball game on the road. Terry Bridge does that, and sometimes along with John McKenna. Because I'm back at home doing the women's game for ESPN Plus or 3, and some of my colleagues were like, you're missing the men's basketball game? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's going to get down to the point. Now, radio will never go away. That sort of thing. Audio will never go away. But there are more and more people watching what is going on in ESPN3 and ESPN Plus that, I think the quality of those games is vastly important. And I got a guy like Terry Bridge, this great play-by-play guy that usually does color for me that, can go cover those things. So I don't think twice about that. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to be winding up doing more and more of these games. And, particularly with whatever lies ahead for us after this virus is over, I can see them relying more on school production, not only for, men's basketball, women's basketball, but we do volleyball, and I can see some other sports in the future.
And there's some great programs at Miami as well. You mentioned women's basketball. Not this year, but the previous 2 years, Megan Duffy, who was a CJ Eagle alum, now at Marquette.
Right.
Man, those were 2 great teams she had.
Yeah, I mean, she did an absolutely wonderful job, and obviously it shows that she's at Marquette. Kind of disappointed that she didn't get the Notre Dame job, but she's going to do great things, and already obviously this year did great things at Marquette. But it basically with Deanna coming in, it was a rebuild. She knew it was going to be a rebuild going in, so I'm looking for things to really pick up there, and I think. For the men, I think next year is going to be a really good year for this team with, Nike being a senior and other guys, and we got a great class coming in. So I think Jack Owens' team next year is going to be very fun.
Let's stick with RedHawks men's basketball. Jack Owens, the head coach at MU. Your takeaways from this previous season?
It was tough. We had a key injury with Bam Bowman, who was going to be the post guy for us. His knees just, he injured earlier and never really quite recovered. So his time was limited in what he could do. And that was always a problem. So we were playing undersized almost all the time. It was sometimes difficult to figure out the team because they would play one great game and then just be horrible the next. Sometimes those things happen. But there's a lot of talent on this team. We missed Javen Etzler. This year, basically got hurt early, going to wind up redshirting. We had guys with ankles early in the season that kind of cost us some non-conference games. But I think, like I said, there's plenty of talent coming back on this team, and with the guys that are coming in, James Beck had to redshirt this year at transfer. I think he's going to play big inside for us, and Elijah McNamara had a great second half of the season for big, and I think I'm looking forward to some really nice things for this team.
My main way of following Miami is listening on the radio on 980 AM because that's the simulcast up here in Dayton.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember listening to a few games myself. I remember the Wilberforce game and the RedHawks just pounding the Bulldogs. And I remember fantastic start for the RedHawks against Ball State. I forget if it was at Oxford or Muncie. And then here comes Ball State and they win.
Yeah, I mean, those type of games, and that's kind of the way the season went. In some of those games, you get off to either a great start or a horrible start, and then have to battle your way back. And I think, the Buffalo game, we got off to such a horrible start in that game. And even if you give up 5 less points in that opening 5 minutes, you come back and you win the game. But it takes so much energy to get over that. And, Ball State did a nice job. I mean, we jumped out early, and once they found their offense, it was lights out. And we just didn't have a way to stop them. But, that was the way kind of a lot of the season went. You'd have one part of the game, and Miami was famous for shooting slumps this year within the game. They would go on 10-minute, 12-minute droughts, and you just can't do that at this level of college basketball.
I mean, considering that's 10 minutes, that's a fourth of the game right there, not scoring anything. Ooh.
Yeah.
I saw something online on Twitter. I forget what the username was, but it looks like Wright State Miami's series in men's basketball is going to be extended for another 4 years, which I think is great. That rivalry is tremendous. What's your take on that? Oh,
I love it. I love it. I honestly wish that we would find a way to do a mythical Miami Valley tournament with all the teams in the area. And, it's one of those things because of dollars and egos and that sort of thing will never get done. But I love the rivalry with Wright State. I love playing up there at the Nutter Center. I love when Wright State comes to Oxford. I just think it's a quality rivalry, and you need those backyard rivalries, when you take a look at college basketball. And I'm just disappointed there's not more of them given the number of teams in this area and the type of talent that there is.
Outside Miami, you got 5 D1 squads just a little under an hour away. I mean,
right.
We mentioned Wright State, Dayton, Cincinnati, the Victory Bell, that's the big series in football. Xavier, Northern Kentucky. I think, having a Miami Valley or a Cinday tournament like that'd be awesome for the fans.
It'd be a blast. The crowds would be there. But again, with money and egos and that sort of thing, it's one of those things that unless a major corporate sponsor or something came up and said, "Hey, we want to do this," I just would never see it happening.
I always thought Mike Sells up here in Dayton would be the perfect sponsor for that. I mean, they can't be for money. Who does?
Yeah, Mike Sells, Cintas. I mean, there's a lot of sponsors out there that could do it. But again, it's one of those things that if you're a Cincinnati or a Dayton or a Xavier, you really don't want to go into a tournament like that and suffer a loss. Mm-hmm. And you're already playing the crosstown shootout in Cincinnati, and it's one of those things that I'd love to see, but boy, it'd be tough.
Let's swing over from men's basketball to football. Chuck Martin leading the RedHawks on the gridiron, and I think a very good year for Miami's football team. Yeah,
I mean, it was. It turned out that way, obviously. After the first 4 games, people were really jumping off that bandwagon and that train, though, giving up 79 points to the Buckeyes and then falling behind 14-3 to Buffalo. But that was kind of the turning point of the season. The guys really put together a solid 3 quarters of football, got the win against Buffalo. And, one of my favorite quotes from Chuck Martin this year was every game is going to be like brushing your hair with a cheese grater. It's just going to be one of those games where you're really going to have to grind it out. And that was the case all year long for this team. But they found ways. The defense made plays. Sam Sloman was absolutely nearly perfect on the season. Kyle Kramer in special teams was great. Mo Thomas in special teams was great. And, of course, going into the year, you just didn't know what you were going to have in a freshman quarterback in Brett Gabbert. But, I mean, he really matured throughout the year, and you had a core of running backs. Jalen Bester led the way, and, Jack Sorensen at one of the wideouts. And it just worked for the RedHawks in MAC play. You suffer a tough one at Western Michigan. Brett, throws a couple of picks. I was really, wanting to see that next game and how a freshman responded. And he was just amazing from there at that point through the rest of the year. So a lot of guys coming back. You lose some guys. Obviously, Sam Sloman's gone. You lose your entire special teams unit, as a matter of fact. But I really am excited for hopefully what lies ahead this fall.
I'd like to add on that Ohio State game, Miami jumped out to a 5-0 lead. So,
first time the Buckeyes trailed all year. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. But you talked about a couple RedHawks. There was one that got drafted by the LA Rams. Yeah,
that was Sam Sloman, our place kicker, and 7th-round draft pick. And, again, he's going to do very well in the NFL. As it turned out, the Rams let the kicker they had on the roster go to free agency, and earlier this week signed a couple of free agents, one out of the XFL and one out of the Canadian League, and then drafted Sam. And, of course, there's some Miami connections there with Sean McVay as the head coach of the LA Rams. There's some Miami coaches that are assistants there. And, like I said, Sam has worked so hard over the last 4 years to develop his leg, develop his accuracy. He was perfect from outside the 50. Kicked a 54-yarder that was probably good from 60 this year, and was always good in the clutch. I mean, we win the Ohio game because he boots one from 52. I mean, he was just that good for us this year and last year as well, and really deserves that NFL shot. And also there was a former Red Hawk that signed a deal with the Jaguars of Jacksonville, too. Yeah, Doug Costin, D lineman, really one of those, I guess you call them alpha dogs. This is a guy that will go get it and doesn't take no for an answer. He is going to go work his tail off. He's going to do everything he can possibly do mentally, physically to make that team. I mean, that's just the type of guy that he is. Great kid, and again, one of those guys that, showed in his pro day, obviously, to the Jags that, hey, look, I've got what it takes. All you have to do is give me a shot. There was another game I listened to. I caught most of the RedHawks games that I could, but I think Miami was at Ball State, and the RedHawks climbed to a very exciting lead, and then Ball State just kind of chipped away, and it was a tough loss. Yeah, I mean, you have some of those games. Ball State, I think it may have been the week before, gave up a huge lead to Eastern Michigan at home and lost. So they had seen it the week before. But, that was one of those games that, you kind of struggle through. And again, things get on a roll like that, and it's tough sometimes to stop. And I think that's what happened. It was not a very pretty day in Muncie, I will tell you that. But it's just one of those games that you look back on and, you didn't want to have that one be the one that kept you out of the championship. And as it was, it made the Ohio game all that more important. Steve, the RedHawks are part of the Mid-American Conference, or the MACtion, as everyone likes to say. Yep. What are some of your favorite and least favorite trips during football or men's basketball season? Wow. Actually, you know what? Ball State's not a bad trip because it's an hour and a half tops to Muncie. Buffalo is probably my least favorite just because it's an 8-hour drive. And if you're going up to play basketball in January, chances are it becomes a 10 or 12-hour drive because of the lake effect snow. It's nothing against the university or anything else. It's just a tough trip for us. That's by far the longest. Central Michigan's about 6 hours, and Northern Illinois is about 5.5 hours. But I love going to Ohio. I love the rivalry. Everything about it. I'm really good friends with Russ Eisenstein, the play-by-play voice of Ohio. I'm friends with all the play-by-play guys. But, it's always fun to go down there and kind of egg on the Bobcats and, and hopefully walk out of there with a win. It had, happens about 50% of the time overall, but they had a run on us there for a while, and it was good to get a win down there, our most recent win. And so anytime you can go into Athens and get a win, it's a lot of fun. And, it's a great rivalry, all around the conference, but those are probably my favorite and least favorite places to go.
Is there any favorite stops on other trips that you really like?
Oh man, that's a loaded question because there's great stops everywhere. I'm trying to think. You've caught me off guard because I can't remember the name of the hamburger joint in Lima, but Cupie. Oh yeah, man. You have to stop at Cupie. Anytime I go toward Toledo or Bowling Green or Eastern Michigan, you can bet that I'm going to be stopping at Cupie. I'm a big burger fan, so any good burger joint in every town is probably where you're going to find me the night before the game. But Cupie is one of those. Of course, you got to get a hot dog in Toledo. You got to go to Tony Pacco's, get a hot dog there, and if we're in Buffalo, I'm going to Anchor Wings. It's just one of those things that you just love to do.
Now, Steve, you mentioned earlier that when you get to call games on ESPN3 or ESPN Plus, you have several screens where you can quickly update fans about the other teams and what they're doing. Have you ever got to broadcast any other sports at Miami, like ice hockey, field hockey, soccer?
You know what? I've done at least one game of field hockey, a game of soccer. I actually did a hockey game on television one time, and we do volleyball on a regular basis. I'm the play-by-play person for volleyball, men's and women's basketball, done baseball, done softball. Most of the sports I've either had a hand in, as director of broadcasting, we, either I'm doing them or I make sure somebody else that's qualified is doing it. Greg Waddell does a great job for us in hockey, and also Tim Bray does a great job for us in women's basketball. But, yeah, there have been times that I've been forced into action, and probably the hockey was the most adventurous. I love watching hockey, but hockey fans they can be brutal, man. If you don't know the lingo and the language and what's going on down there, luckily I had Josh Fenton, who is now the commissioner of the NCHC, was a former Miami guy, and he was doing color. So all I had to say was a name, and he'd take off. So it worked out pretty well. But I've done a lot of different sports since my time at Miami.
Is there any favorite games that you got to do? I mean, football, men's basketball, any sport. What's some of your favorite games, favorite players, favorite coaches you got to interact with?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Ron Harper, there were so many games. I mean, Ron's last game in Millett Hall, we're down 22 with 12 minutes to go against Central Michigan, and they had retired his jersey before the game. And, there was a point, I think we were down 12 with like 2 minutes to go. And Jerry Pearson just, Darryl Hedrick said, he just walked into the huddle and said, "Give me the ball." And, they wind up winning, and there's a great photo somewhere in the archives of Ron sitting up on one basket, Ron Hunter sitting up on the other basket, and coming back and winning that game over a Charlie Coles coach Central Michigan team. It was a great game. Ron, in a MAC championship game against Ball State, they announced the player of the year prior to the game that night, that afternoon. And Ron was the player of the year. Well, Dan Palambizio played for Ball State. And as they were introduced and shook hands at half court, Palambizio told Harper, "We'll see who the player of the year is." And Ron dropped 45 on him. So that's one of my favorite games in basketball. I'm trying to think football. There has been so many. I was actually doing color for the win at LSU in '86 when the Tigers were ranked 8th in the country. big come-from-behind win at Northwestern, 27 down after they had just beaten Notre Dame the week before, wound up handing the Wildcats their only loss that season as they went to the Rose Bowl. Obviously Ben's games, so many games when Ben Roethlisberger was here that, stick in your mind. And, the Hail Mary 70-yard pass that beat Akron, the bowl game at GMAC Bowl, his last game. And, you can almost mark down every game in 2003 as one of my favorites. And, that's one of the things, and this about doing sports, man, you get to live vicariously through these guys and gals that, just do an absolutely great job on the football field, on the basketball court, volleyball court, wherever they're playing. And it's a blast. And being the representative for that team, for the most part, I have to stay neutral on ESPN Plus and 3. But, for the most part, it's a blast to just be a part of that and see these teams and players grow as they go through college.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun being part of the broadcasting field and just seeing these athletes compete. Earlier this year, I called a hockey game, and one of the highlights got to SportsCenter Top 10. It was one of those.
There you go.
It was one of those Michigan goals, and I'm just like, that really happened, or my mind have a stroke for a second?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just happy I didn't say anything too embarrassing on that highlight. So, heck yeah, I was happy about that. But,
very good.
Yeah. Is there anything better than broadcasting sports and getting to talk to the fans, what's happening? And
yeah, as you get the best seat in the house every night, whether it's courtside at a basketball game or up in the press box for a football game. It is the best seat in the house, and your job is to sit there and talk about the game. It is just a blast. Now, the things outside the game that, for me anyway, producing videos and doing the other stuff, that's all part of the job. But yeah, doing play-by-play and sitting right next to the floor or up in the press boxes, to me, I had a great job at WOXY. I was station manager there for 20 years. That was a dream job. Certainly this is a dream job for me as well, just being a part of Miami University and doing what I did.
Steve, what was your point and when you decided you really wanted to be part of this field?
When I went to Bedford, Indiana, just after I got into radio, probably a couple of years, I was working as a DJ, and, the play-by-play guy couldn't do it. And I said, I'll give it a shot. And obviously loved it from the beginning. I didn't play college basketball, played basketball in high school, and always loved basketball. I'm an Indiana guy, right? Grew up right across the state line and always loved basketball, and, used to keep stats and do that sort of thing. And, I got a taste of it, obviously, when I got into radio and we'd go to Miami games and that sort of thing. And, as I continued, when I moved to Virginia, I did small high school football and a state championship run there. And when I came back up to Ohio in '83, had the opportunity to be a part of the Miami games. And, so that's really where, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do eventually. And, it's one of the lucky ones that it's worked out.
What can you see in the future of Miami athletics, the technology of broadcasting, and just in general in terms of sports?
Well, that's going to be an interesting question because, with the current situation, and I know Governor DeWine opened up some things in the state today, but, the big question still to be answered, is football going to happen? Is basketball going to happen? Is hockey going to happen? How's it going to happen this year? We've already seen Louisville having to cut $15 million out of their budget, Akron having to cut $4 million out of their budget. And I'm sure that'll, all be at every school at some point in time. So those questions, at least for the immediate future, have to be answered to determine what's going to happen in broadcasting. But certainly video is going to continue to grow with Disney owning ESPN and ESPN Plus and 3 and all of the networks. They're going to put money into it because they're going to make money off of it. And so you'll see more and more productions, more and more things happening there. I know we talk to our ESPN people several times a year, and always work for the latest and the best possible productions that we can do. And I think video and certainly the online areas will continue to grow. Social media, as you've seen in this time, has been a key factor in just getting the word out on Miami athletics. It always has been, but I think that'll continue to grow. I know we're pushing all the latest platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it happens to be, and I think you'll see more and more of that go online, and less and less emphasis, but you won't see as many audio broadcasts, I don't think, in the future.
And that would be disappointing for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotta love radio. I mean,
well, like I said, I don't think radio is going to go anywhere. I think that's all those things. And, TuneIn is a great app that I use all the time, driving back and forth from games, because I can listen to games from around the country on my phone, plug it into the radio in the car, and listen to games from around the country, and not have to worry about radio. So I think you'll see more and more of those kinds of things. And obviously we've been streaming audio for a long time, but I think you'll see more and more of those things where you can go to an app and then choose whatever game you want to listen to.
You mentioned some of the athletic departments shedding money. Earlier last week, Urbana decided to close its doors for good. I will bring a point. It does have to do with the MAC. The last baseball game that Urbana will ever play, they did beat Division I Akron.
There you go.
At Akron, too, which...
Chris Sabo's team.
I am so happy Akron got baseball back. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that back. Glad to see Chris up there, and they're on the long road, obviously, with scholarships and that sort of thing. But glad to see that they got baseball back.
You kind of touched up on this, but with the coronavirus shutting most things down, how's that affected your job?
Working from home. Basically, I've been to the office maybe 4 or 5 times in the last month and a half, just to pick something up that I may have forgotten, a hard drive or something. And so I'm producing all the videos at home, all the interviews here at home. We just did our night in for the Red and White just a little over a week ago. And excuse me, it was a 2-hour show that was totally produced on Google Hangouts and TikTok and Zoom and everything else, and so I had to do all those interviews, most of them, and then start putting things together, and basically produced a 2-hour show right here in my basement. So it's changed in that fact. We don't have access to the studio, we don't have access to our high quality cameras and that sort of thing. So you work with what you have. And everybody's doing that in a new normal, talking with our coaches. I mean, they're holding Zoom meetings with their athletes. And, we have some of our athletes that are, overseas and, still finding a way to connect with them and stay in touch with them and that sort of thing. So, it's a new normal. Everything's based on the internet. Everything's based online, and trying to figure out the best way to get the information and, the data out to our fans.
Steve, what are some of your favorite things about the sports scene, either in the Dayton area, Cincinnati, or in the Oxford area?
Like I said, I'm a college basketball nut, and I love that there's so many great teams in this area. Dayton, and the year that they had, I honestly believe they had a shot at the national championship. Great to see that they had the National Player of the Year, National Coach of the Year. I think they deserved it. But just so many great teams in this area. I love the UC rivalry in football, the battle for the victory bell. And, I'm not a huge pro sports fan. Just never have been. I like the college level. And I think that, the Bengals did the right thing in the draft, first and foremost. I'm happy that, they went that way. And but, it's a great state. As far as professional sports, with the Browns, the Bengals, the Blue Jackets, and, the Reds and the Indians. So I can't think of too many other states I'd rather live in than Ohio with the college sports and with the professional sports.
And Oxford itself is a great town. It's a great college town, and Miami University is a beautiful campus. If no one's been there, I mean,
the prettiest campus that ever there was, according to Robert Frost. But it is. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful, and we love living here. My wife, my family. I grew up around here. Obviously, her family was from here as well, and we absolutely love the area and everything about it.
I will say my favorite venue at Miami is definitely Goggin Ice Arena.
Yep.
When the Centerville Elks travel to Talawanda, I always look forward to being there. That place just screams hockey, just screams history. And when you walk in the lobby and just see how successful Red Hawk and Redskin hockey's been, with all the NHL sweaters hanging up there, it's marvelous.
Yeah, it is incredible. And, over the years, the number of guys that have gone on to play, I had a chance, a week or so ago to talk to Alec Martinez, now with Vegas and the Golden Knights. And he's looking forward to, being there in Vegas after a couple of Stanley Cups in L.A. with the Kings. And, there's a legacy in hockey that is tough to match when you see the number of guys that not only to the NHL but to the minor league hockey teams as well that play professionally. And I know Chris Bergeron is working to improve on that, and I think he's going to do a great job. I think you'll see more and more of those guys going to the NHL real soon.
I think the second year of his tenure at Miami, I think it'll be much better, much more improved, and I'm looking forward to it myself. Yeah,
absolutely. I think with the recruiting class coming in and the culture that he is developing, I'm really looking forward to the upcoming year for them.
I will say one of my favorite things, I think it was my first time at Goggin, dueling Zambonis, and the purple Oxford Taco Bell Zamboni. That's the greatest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they bring them both out every time. And so it's a lot of fun to go to a hockey game at Goggin and Steve Coach Katie Arena, and I encourage it to all your listeners. Get out there and enjoy a hockey game. Come out and see us for all of our games. It's a lot of fun.
Steve, what would you like to see in the future for area media or area sports?
Media is, it's changed so much, and we see the Inquirer, we see the Journal lowering their staffs to, because they just can't, the print media is just not there. So they're trying to compete online and that sort of thing. There's so many .coms and that sort of thing that are now reporting on sports, and, budgetarily, TV stations have cut down on what they did. I remember John Popovich, walking into Millette carrying his own camera and doing his own stuff, not awfully long ago. So I think the media is going to continue to thin out and base their coverage, like right now, every TV station in Cincinnati, unless they get footage elsewhere, is concentrating on Cincinnati, Xavier, and Northern Kentucky. Dayton's covering Dayton and Wright State. So we're kind of caught in a juggernaut between the two, and we don't get a whole lot of coverage in either area unless something amazing happens. So unfortunately for us, I don't see that changing. So that's why our website and our social media is so important to us, to be able to get out there and reach more people. And obviously, the more people that you reach, the more ticket sales you get, the more money you can make, and to pay the bills and to pay those scholarships. So I think you'll see more and more media go to social media, websites, that sort of thing. And I think you'll see the fans turn that way more often for news, particularly about Miami, but I think in other sports as well, other schools.
Steve, for those that want to be sports broadcasters or in the field, what advice can you give to those folks?
Be patient. That's the biggest thing. I mean, let's face it, there's 300 and some Division I schools, and a lot of those schools are loaded with guys like me that have been there for 30 years plus. So there's not always a whole lot of Division I jobs out there. So you have to be patient. You have to abide your time in, high schools, minor league baseball, that sort of stuff, and really work and hone your skill. But get out there and call as many games as you can, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, whatever sport you're most interested in. Get out there, find a way to call as many games as you can. Send it out to professional announcers like myself, like Lee. You just send them out and let people hear what you're doing and maybe they can give you tips. I mean, we're all busy, but maybe they can give you some tips to improve what you do. And I think it's a great career, as we have talked about, but these days I know patience is a great virtue when you're dealing with it. Not many guys, say, okay, I'm going to do play-by-play, and the next year wind up on ESPN or, CBS or that sort of thing. So great patience is a virtue.
And you touched on this too. Create your own opportunity. I mean,
right.
With the internet, there's ways to stream games, and
yep.
You have opportunities. You have options.
And a lot of guys are doing that, particularly at the high school level. You'll see networks, for various areas. I know Texas is famous for, several high school networks that some people have started down there that are strictly audio, some video with one camera, that sort of thing. That basically they've created it on their own. And, you'll see more and more of those, I think, particularly at the high school level, as the technology is there to do it. People are going to take advantage of it.
Luckily, I'm part of one of those in Cincinnati, so
mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping we have football this year. I'm really hoping.
I agree with you. That's the news I'm waiting to hear, and hopefully we'll get there here in the near future.
Now, Steve, how can people follow your work on social media?
Probably first and foremost at MiamiRedHawks.com. Everything kind of filters through there, but certainly follow me at RedHawks Voice on Twitter. Happy to have the followers along, and you can just look me up on Facebook, Steve Baker, Miami University. You'll find me there, and send me a friend request, and I usually accept them. So that's the two places that you'll find me most on are Twitter and Facebook.
Steve, thank you so much for being part of this episode. Really, really happy to talk Miami sports with you and find out about your career.
Lee, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
That's Steve Baker, and that closes out episode 145 of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and talk to you again for episode 146.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast with Lee W. Mowen. To subscribe to the podcast, please visit theleewmowen.com/podcast. From there, you can choose your favorite platform, such as Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, TuneIn, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, and many more. Interact with the podcast and host on Twitter at the Lee W. Mowen and at CinDayPod. Like the Facebook page, the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast, and download the free Flick Chat app, then search for the local Sunday sports group to submit your future Mowen's Mailbag questions. The closing theme is Lights Go Down by Dan Hennig, provided by the YouTube Music Library Collection. This is Lee W. Mowen, and I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please join me again next week on the Cincinnati and Dayton Sports Podcast.